Imagine a book older than the pyramids describing the year 2026 with terrifying accuracy. We live in a world of high-tech wonders, yet our souls have never felt more empty, and Enoch saw it all coming. You're watching the Forbidden Files, where we decode the Enoch Code, from the hidden war for your very DNA to the silent collapse of global power structures. Tonight, we reveal 7 prophecies the world is too distracted to notice. Stay with us because the 7th prophecy, it explains the one thing no one is telling you about our future. Think about the patterns of history for a moment. Most of us are taught to believe that history is a straight line of progress. We believe we are constantly moving forward, getting smarter, faster, and more enlightened. But Enoch saw something entirely different. He didn't see a line, he saw a circle. He saw a recurring cycle where humanity reaches a peak of knowledge, walks away from its creator, and eventually slides into a darkness that feels, strangely, like home. In the ancient descriptions of the pre-flood world, the collapse wasn't a sudden explosion. It wasn't an overnight disaster that caught everyone by surprise. It was a slow, quiet drift. Enoch describes a society where evil didn't arrive as a terrifying monster at the gate. Instead, it arrived as a guest that never left. It became part of the furniture. It became the new standard of normal. This is why Jesus later pointed us back to this exact moment in time. He said, "As it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man." But what was it actually like back then? According to the scriptures, people weren't living in constant terror. They weren't hiding in bunkers or panicking in the streets. They were eating. They were drinking. They were marrying and being given in marriage. Think about the weight of that detail. On the very eve of the greatest judgment in human history, life felt incredibly ordinary. The sky was clear. The markets were open. The daily routine was undisturbed. Evil had been so thoroughly normalized that the warning signs were treated as background noise. They weren't necessarily evil in their own eyes. They were just busy living. Does any of that feel familiar? Look at our world today as we move through 2026. We watch cities burn on our screens while we scroll for entertainment. We see the fundamental structure of the family crumbling, and we call it evolution. We see truth being treated as a personal preference, and we call it freedom. We have normalized the very things that used to make us tremble. We have become comfortable in the middle of a collapse. There is a term for this in modern psychology. It's called normalcy bias. It is a powerful defense mechanism of the human brain. When we are faced with a threat that is too big, too dark, or too different from anything we've ever experienced, our minds simply reject it. We refuse to process the danger because it doesn't fit our previous experience. Your brain tells you a lie. It tells you, because it hasn't happened yet, it never will. It tells you, things have always been a bit messy, this is just another headline. This bias is why the people in Noah's day laughed at the ark. It's why people today ignore the tremors beneath the surface of our global economy and our moral foundations. We tell ourselves that because the sun rose this morning, the system must be stable. But Enoch warns us that this comfort is the greatest trap of all. Normalcy is not the same thing as safety. In fact, when the world feels most normal while acting most lawless, that is when the danger is at its peak. Our cold faith isn't just a lack of passion. It is the result of this bias. We have become so used to the dark that we have forgotten what the light actually looks like. But here is the question we must face. If our brains are wired to ignore the warning, how do we wake up? If the world around us is designed to keep us comfortable in our slide toward judgment, how do we recognize the cliff before we go over the edge? Enoch suggests the answer lies in the knowledge we were never meant to possess. Now shift your focus to something even more unsettling. What if the technology we worship today isn't a new invention, but a return of something forbidden? In the ancient world of Enoch, the corruption of humanity did not begin with a lack of education or a lack of tools. It began with a gift. But it wasn't a gift of love. It was a gift of forbidden power. Enoch describes a group of celestial beings known as the Watchers, who crossed a boundary they were never meant to cross. They didn't just arrive to observe, they arrived to interfere. They taught humanity the art of metallurgy, the crafting of blades, and the science of war. But they went deeper. They taught enchantments, the cutting of roots, and the manipulation of the very elements of the earth. Think about that. Humanity didn't just stumble into violence. We were tutored in it. We were given secrets that our wisdom was never intended to handle. Now look at the world around you in 2026. Does the rapid explosion of knowledge feel like a natural evolution, or does it feel like history is repeating itself? Scripture anticipated this. Daniel wrote that in the time of the end, many would run to and fro, and knowledge would increase. But he didn't say this knowledge would save us. He implied it would overwhelm us. What happens when knowledge grows faster than wisdom? What happens when our ability to destroy creation outpaces our conscience? Enoch's vision was not just about the past. It was a warning about the danger of interference. This is not about progress. This is about crossing boundaries we do not fully understand. Now shift your focus to a detail we often overlook in the book of Enoch. The fallen angels didn't just teach war, they taught mixing. They taught a form of knowledge that led to the alteration of creation itself. Enoch describes a world where the ranzoi between species were blurred, where the very purity of humanity was vibun by a strange and foreign blueprint. Think about the weight of that. This wasn't just a story about giants. This was about the corruption of the human source code. The Nephilim were the result of a biological invasion, a violation of the original design established by the Creator. Now fast forward to the present day. We stand at the edge of a new frontier called CRISPR, the ability to edit the very code of life itself. Today we pride ourselves on the power to rewrite the instructions of our existence. We speak of curing diseases and enhancing the human race as if we are finally mastering our own destiny. But here is the question we rarely ask. Is this truly evolution? Or is it a silent invasion of the temple of the Holy Spirit, our very bodies? When we modify the human genome, are we actually improving the design, or are we erasing the mark of God? The fallen angels in Enoch's time didn't just want to rule humanity. They wanted to change what it meant to be human. They wanted to replace the Creator's signature with their own. Today, as we watch artificial intelligence and genetic engineering merge into a single force, we have to wonder, are we crossing the exact same line that Enoch warned us about thousands of years ago? Knowledge is not inherently evil, but knowledge without wisdom is a death sentence. This is not an attack on technology. It is a recognition of an ancient pattern. Every time humanity has tried to become the architect of its own nature, the result has been collapse. We are currently engaged in a hidden war for the ownership of the human soul, and the battlefield is our very DNA. If we lose our biological purity, if we edit away the essence of what God created, will we even be recognizable when the day of judgment arrives? Enoch's warning is not a fairy tale from the past. It is a mirror held up to our laboratories and our tech giants. It forces us to confront an uncomfortable possibility, that our greatest advancements might actually be our greatest rebellion. We are mastery obsessed, yet we are losing the one thing that truly matters, our connection to the original design. This is not progress, this is an erasure. And as the boundaries continue to dissolve, the real question isn't how far we can go. The question is, what will be left of us when we finally get there? But if the external world is being reshaped by forbidden knowledge, something even more dangerous is happening inside of us. If we are losing the blueprint of our bodies, have we already lost the anchor of our souls? Look around. Across the world, historic churches stand empty, converted into nightclubs and cafes. In the United States, millions now identify as having no faith at all. Could this quiet disengagement be the very falling away that Enoch and the apostles warned us about? Enoch didn't just describe a world under attack from the outside. He described a world collapsing from the inside out. He saw a moment when the hearts of the holy would turn away from wisdom and truth would be obscured. Centuries later, the Apostle Paul gave this phenomenon a name: apostasia. The word apostasia doesn't mean a simple misunderstanding. It doesn't mean a temporary doubt. It means a deliberate defection, a turning away from the source of life to a replacement that offers no life at all. Now, look around. Does this ancient warning feel like a distant myth, or does it feel like the headline of 2026? Across Europe and the Americas, we are witnessing a phenomenon that history has never seen on this scale. Historic churches, places that stood for centuries as anchors of truth, now stand empty. Some have been converted into museums. Others have become cafes, libraries, or even nightclubs. This is not just a shift in demographics. This is a public abandonment of the sacred. But here's the question we rarely ask. Why are the buildings empty while the fear in our streets is at an all-time high? Why is the world more spiritual, yet less holy than ever before? If you look at the comments under videos like this, you see a staggering pattern. Millions of people are walking away from traditional institutions, but they are not walking away from God. They are tired of hollow rituals. They are tired of standards that bend to fit the culture. They feel the emptiness of a faith that has been reshaped to be comfortable, lukewarm, and safe. Jesus described the emotional temperature of this era with haunting precision. He said, "Because lawlessness will increase, the love of many will grow cold." Notice he didn't say people would become filled with hatred. He said they would grow cold. Coldness is far more dangerous than hostility. Hostility at least recognizes that something is important enough to fight. Coldness is adrift. It is a quiet disengagement. It is the normalization of the divine until it becomes irrelevant. This is not an external persecution. This is an internal erosion. This is why so many of you are now gathering in secret. This is why home faith is rising. You are seeking a fellowship that isn't built on bricks and mortar, but on truth and spirit. You are realizing that God does not dwell in temples made by human hands, especially when those temples have abandoned His word. But we must be careful. The falling away isn't just something happening out there in the world. It is something that threatens to happen in here, in the quiet places of our own hearts. The most dangerous rebellion doesn't look like a riot. It looks like a slow walk away from conviction. It looks like a heart that has become numb to the gravity of the times we live in. This is not a time for casual belief. This is a time for desperate endurance. We are living in a moment where truth is treated as a personal preference, and morality is shaped by the latest trend. But Enoch saw this. He knew that when faith grows cold, the world becomes a playground for the very forces he warned us about. So here is the question that matters for your soul today. In a world that is trading its spiritual heritage for temporary comfort, where do you stand? Have you allowed the coldness of the world to settle into your own spirit? Or are you part of the remnant that refuses to let the fire go out? Because the falling away is not a future event, it is a present condition. And the real danger isn't that the church doors are closing, it's that our hearts are drifting. If the world feels unstable right now, could it be because the anchors we once trusted have been pulled up? And if the structures we relied on are collapsing, what happens when the true king finally returns to claim what is his? Enoch's vision didn't stop at the gates of the spiritual realm. He saw the very foundations of human government tremble. He saw a moment in time when the thrones of the kings would be cast down. We often think of thrones as relics of the past, ancient chairs in dusty museums. But in the language of prophecy, a throne is a system of authority. It is the structure that dictates how you live, how you work, and how you survive. Now shift your focus to the world we are navigating in 2026. Does the global stage feel like a firm foundation, or does it feel like a shifting sea? We are watching a tectonic redistribution of power that the world has not seen in nearly a century. We see the rise of the BRICS alliance, challenging the long-held dominance of the West. We see the historic stability of the dollar beginning to fray under the weight of debt and distrust. But here is the question we must ask. Is this global instability an accident, or is it a sign of an approaching order that the world is being conditioned to accept? Enoch saw that history does not end in chaos, it ends in rule. But before the true king arrives, the false systems of man must reach their peak of control. This is not just about a change in banking. This is a fight for the ownership of human life. For the first time in history, we have the technology to fulfill the most chilling warnings of the ancient scripts. Think about the world we are building right now. We are moving rapidly toward a society without physical currency, a world where every single transaction is a digital event, recorded and monitored by a centralized authority. This is not a conspiracy, it is a transition. It is the construction of a system where your access to survival is tied directly to your compliance. Imagine a situation where your faith is no longer a private conviction, but a liability in the marketplace. Imagine a world where, in order to buy bread for your children or pay the rent for your home, you are required to trade away your beliefs. If your digital wallet can be frozen with a single keystroke because you refuse to follow a specific cultural narrative, then freedom has become an illusion. Enoch warned us about knowledge humanity was never meant to possess. Today, that knowledge has become a digital shackle. We are being ushered into a world where the currency of the future is not gold or paper, it is obedience. This is the ultimate throne of our age, a system of total control that demands your soul in exchange for your existence. Is it possible that the current collapse of trust in our leaders and our institutions is not a failure, but a preparation? Are we being led into a state of such desperation and chaos that we will willingly accept a throne that promises order at the cost of our divinity? The scriptures tell us that when the true king arrives, every false throne will collapse. But until that day, the battle is being fought on the board of global finance and digital control. This is the hidden war for your survival. It is a moment where the kings of the earth realize their power is slipping, and in their panic, they are building a cage. But even as these systems tighten, there is a limit to their reach. Enoch saw the throne of the elect one before the chaos ended. He saw that while the world was being reshaped by the hands of men, God was preserving something that no system could touch. The question is no longer whether the system is changing. The question is, what are you built on? Because when the fire of judgment finally arrives, it will reveal exactly which thrones were made of stone and which were made of hay. As the world burns with the desire for control, a different kind of fire is approaching. A fire that doesn't just destroy empires, but refines the souls of those who refuse to bow. When the false systems are finally stripped away, will you stand refined, or will you be exposed? Enoch's final vision was not about the end of life, but the end of corruption. He wrote about a week of righteousness where a sword would be given to execute judgment, not as a random act of vengeance, but as a final cleansing. For Enoch, the fire of the last days was not meant to erase creation. It was meant to remake it. Think about the nature of fire. It consumes what is temporary, but it reveals what is eternal. In Scripture, God is often described as a refiner's fire. Gold survives the flame, the impurities do not. This is the ultimate distinction between those who are built on the sand of this world and those who are built on the rock of the unseen realm. One of you recently shared a deeply honest struggle in the comments. You said, "I've tried my best to be good for 70 years, but now the lines are so blurred that everything important seems irrelevant. What is good anymore?" It's a question that echoes in the heart of everyone watching this. In a world where evil is celebrated as freedom and truth is treated as a personal choice, how do you stay good? Enoch's answer is simpler than you think. Righteousness in these times is not about being a celebrated hero or a powerful leader. It is about resistance. It is the quiet, stubborn refusal to let your heart grow cold. It is the decision to remain human in a world that is becoming increasingly mechanical and indifferent. To be good today is to keep your inner light burning when the winds of culture are screaming at you to let it go. It is staying faithful to the original design when everyone around you is embracing the forbidden blueprint. This brings us to a powerful law of the universe, the law of resonance. In physics, a single small vibration, if it is at the right frequency, can cause a massive bridge of steel to collapse. The same is true for the spirit. A mountain of lies can stand for generations, towering over the earth, looking untouchable. But when a person stands on that mountain and speaks a foundational truth, the entire structure begins to crumble under its own weight. The shock waves of that one truth reverberate through the earth, awakening those who didn't even know they were asleep. This is why the hidden righteous are so dangerous to the systems of this world. You don't need an army. You don't need a platform. You need a frequency. You need to hold a truth so pure that the fire cannot touch it. Centuries after Enoch, the Apostle John saw the same outcome. He saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first ones had passed away. This is the restoration Enoch was pointing toward. The fire is coming not to destroy everything, but to make all things new. It is coming to strip away the digital chains, the biological interference, and the moral rot, leaving behind only what is real. So we return to the final question. As the elements melt and the systems of man dissolve, what will be left of you? Will you stand refined, having released the temporary comforts of this world? Or will the fire consume what you refuse to let go? The 7 prophecies of Enoch are not just markers of history. They are an invitation to enter the ark of the modern age, to find refuge in the truth before the sky opens. If this message resonated with you, if you feel that frequency of truth stirring in your own spirit, join this remnant. Share this with someone who feels lost in the coldness of this world. Let them know they are not forgotten. The King is returning, the fire is near, and for those who belong to him, the story is just beginning. Will you stand with us in the light?